Sali tayo sa CBS Duathlon. Lakas yan. Grabe. Ano? Maraming salamat sa pagsubaybay at kasama sa atin.
But wait! There's more!
Sa episode na to, alamin natin kung paano nga ba mag-train para sa duathlon. Particularly sa mga newbie o sa mga tumatakbo na, matagal tumatakbo, matagal nagpo-bike pero first time sasali sila. Alamin natin yan ngayon.
What is multi-sport?
Multi-sport, Sir Mike, is 2 to 3 or more sports rolled into one. So parang instead of sports, it's now discipline. Like, for example, duathlon, which is usually run, bike, run. Or triathlon, which is swim, bike, and run. Or aquathlon, swim, and run. So it's 2 or more sports. So like before, okay, my last coaching stint dyan po sa atin sa Pinas is OCR, which is considered an obstacle course racing. It's considered as a multi-sport event because it's 2 or more sports or disciplines rolled into one event. Yeah.
How do you train for it? So, for example, in your experience and professional opinion.
Training for multi-sports is definitely sport-specific, Sir Mike. So, meaning you do the exact sport. So, for example, we call it break training, na parang binato daw ng bricks yung legs mo, kaya siya na tinawag na brick training. Ganun yung feeling. So parang ganun siya kasakit. Masakit siya talaga, sir. Kasi, for example, bike for 30-40 kilometers. Bike for 30-40 kilometers. And then after that, you do, right after the bike, you hop into your running shoes and then do another 5 to 10K or even 50K for some other people na talagang dedicated for the full Ironman distance. No? But because of that, sanay na yung legs mo neurally of pedaling that motion on the bike, right? Tapos nun, you go now to running, which is ellipsoidal in motion. Masakit siya neurally because mag-iiba yung firing pattern. So that's why they call it break training.
So it's really a serious matter.
Yes, sir. Kasi for me, we call it also on a training perspective, we call it also fatigue resistance. Because for the 73 or even the Olympic distance triathlon, we're in Olympic distance triathlon is 1.5 kilometer swim followed by a 40 kilometer bike and then lastly a 10K run. So for some people, 10K running is already like serious. It's 1 hour. It's 1 hour of running, right? Yeah. So ang nangyari is after mo mag-swim 1.5, bike 40K, tatakbo ka pa ng 10K. It's fatigue resistance. You're resisting fatigue to do that run. So that's why, yun nga, part of the break training is actually building fatigue resistance. Wherein you are resisting fatigue, which is technically similar to stamina.
So kung ba ako, can I train alone or do I have to have either a companion or a team for that matter?
In any sport, masarap may companion. In anything that you do. Kasi kapag meron kang partner, ayaw mong mang-iwan sa ere. So, gigisingan kayo, right? You motivate each other. But there are definitely trainings like na maganda rin solo. Like long rides, solo effort because you're just you and your machine, your bicycle, and then it's a me time for you and you're just with you and your thoughts all throughout. So it's a mental, for me, it's a therapy. Nasabi ko, it's nice to join a club kasi majority of the time they're targeting a specific race. Or majority of the club members will have similar interests or similar goals, and definitely you'll have that bond and you motivate each other. So it's a mixture of having both.
Okay, that's good. Balik tayo sa training. So halimbawa, let's say duathlon lang muna. Ano ang dapat na progression nun? Like for Monday ba is run muna ako, then Tuesday, mag-bike na, then alternate days?
I would say for now, it's nice to have like alternate days. One is hindi ko rin advocate usually yung everyday running because nga it's eccentric motion eh. Yung the landing of the foot sa ground promotes eccentric motion. So the muscular damage of eccentric is actually higher than cycling. You have to balance the two. If you're now from a single sport doing multi-sport, it's now something also chasing your weakness. Kasi for example, yung iba from running pupunta ng cycling. Pagdating mo talaga sa cycling, hindi 100% yung fitness transfer from running to cycling eh. Even though it's the same muscle groups or similar muscle groups. So kailangan mong pahabulin isang discipline para lang sa fitness natin. And then eventually, as the alternating days is now parang part of your schedule, I would say 3 weeks of that. It's like base.
Okay.
You're in tune to having 2 disciplines or 2 sports, preparing for 2 sports into one. Right now, you can now have two training sessions in a day.
Yes. So dito pumapasok pa rin yung main point na the principle of specificity.
Yes, very much, sir. Very, very much. Specificity is king. But I don't want to disregard strength and conditioning because for core, we call it the triangle, di ba, sir? So the flat part of the triangle is still stability, core stability, like your planks, whatever. Okay, that promotes stability of the core. Okay, and then the upward, I call it usually, is the anti-rotation. That's gonna progress you to the next, which is running. Cycling is more of stability. But running is actually an anti-rotation sport because contralateral yung motion eh. Left arm swing, front right, front right. So it's more of an anti-rotation kasi you don't want to move like a snake na swerve. So it's an anti-rotation motion. But going to Duathlon of the pyramid pababa is now the rotational. So the rotational for me is really tawag dito, very fun, like golf, batting, right? Pitching is all rotational, and swimming is rotational.
Yes. Okay.
Pero one thing we notice is sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes too much of one thing, nawawala yung isa. Right? So nangyayari, sir, pagkatapos mong mag-rotation, nawawala yung stability. The 3 disciplines of triathlon requires stability, anti-rotation, and rotational core. And that's where, okay, if you really want to progress in this sport, other than hitting specificity, you have to hit the gym also.
Do we often forget na importante pa din pala ang strength training?
Yes, sir. Especially for injuries because it's overuse injuries. You're doing the same movement over and over. Like for example, a 2-hour ride. You did a 2-hour ride. That's already 10,200 revolutions or repetitions. And same with running. You're chasing close to 90 steps per minute on each leg. So that's how many steps per hour. And it's now becoming an overuse. So paulit-ulit yung motion. Yes, so that's the reason why also we want to promote better hip stability, better shoulder stability, okay, better range of motion, and those stuff.
So hindi dapat biglayin, right?
Yes.
Correct. Is it necessary for an athlete to have themselves medically cleared